All right, we are live now. Let's already got some people in chat. Hey, we've got some good guests tonight. I'm excited about having on tonight. And just want to say hi to everybody in chat. We've got PN Hassett, who has a lot of questions there right off the bat. I'll try to get to those. Gary Spock Sr., how you doing? There's my buddy Mark Livewire. How you doing, man? Who else we got here? Chris Kimball, how are you? B. Lynn, Five Head. Good to see everybody there. And that being said, I've got some guests tonight. I got my son Elijah's going to be here, and I'm going to bring him in right now. There's Elijah. That's my son for y'all that don't know. And hey, there's Brent, the tall ones. And we've also got my friend from up north in Massachusetts. We've got Cornell from the No Such Thing podcast. And also we've got Will from WillStar Monsters and Mysteries all the way from Ohio. So we got quite a crew here. And hey, before we get started, Mark, hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Tomorrow, somebody very important is having a birthday. Y'all know who that is, Will or Cornell?
It's got to be
Will.
Bill.
You're muted.
I am.
Will is muted, not Cornell.
Oh, there we go. Is that better?
There he is.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. It's somebody on this screen is having a birthday.
Well, it must be you.
Tommy, it's not you, Cornell. So it's either Elijah or David.
It's Elijah.
Well, happy birthday, Elijah.
Thank you.
Elijah is turning. How old are you going to be, Elijah?
27.
Wow.
27.
Hopefully, I'm not part of the club.
Yeah, rock stars have to survive the 27. You know, y'all know that. But anyway, man, it's great to have all y'all together. It's been a little bit. I've had Will on fairly recently. It's been a minute for Cornell, but I've been wanting to get all y'all together and with Elijah for a while now. And again, Livewire, I appreciate that, man. I've got Pyromedic on there, and there's Brent, as I said. So anyway, I think most of you here know Cornell and Will, and maybe some of you know Elijah. But Will has a YouTube channel called WillStar Monsters and Mysteries. It used to be just WillStar Mysteries, I think.
Yes.
And he added the monsters in there because that sounds scary.
Some
and all. and Cornell, there's one thing about Cornell is the very first podcast that I was ever on was with Cornell on the No Such Thing podcast. Yeah, it was. I had just started this YouTube channel, and Cornell sent me a message and said, "Hey, I've got a podcast. Would you like to be on it?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So that's how far me and Cornell go back to the very first of this of me starting this YouTube channel. So anyway, another thing we have in common, the four of us here, other than Elijah's being my son, is we have all been to the same area in the Kiamichi Mountains and encamped there. And let's see, with Will, it was last October. And Cornell has been down a couple of times. Once just me and him, and then the second time he was down, it was me and Elijah and Cornell, and had some pretty interesting trips down there, didn't we?
Yeah, indeed.
Indeed we did. Especially that last one with the rocks being thrown out, or the rock singular being thrown into our camp. That was pretty neat. Yeah. Man, I tell you what, I wish we could work out, if y'all wanted to, is sometime if we could get all four of us on this screen together for one of these things. Will is constantly inviting me to Ohio, and
Rocking Hills right here.
May the forest be with you. There you go. And that's on that note. Will, what about Ohio? What part of Ohio is a Bigfoot hotspot, or is there an actual Bigfoot hotspot there in Ohio?
There are a whole bunch of hotspots here in Ohio. Usually it's in the southeastern portion of the state because that's where it becomes more mountainous and forested. Up in the northwest quadrant of the state, it's like really flat, like farms, so you don't see many sightings from that area. But the southeast part of the state definitely has a whole bunch. There's a park called Salt Fork State Park where a lot of people go. But where I go is a small town called Logan, Ohio. That's my spot. That's where I had my encounter. And it's a little bit further away from Salt Fork, Ohio, but it's still in the general area. So there's a lot of places. And if I could ever get you guys to go with me, we could go back to that cabin, and I have a wonderful, wonderful spot right there, guys.
That'll be a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cornell or Will, Elijah knows I don't have very many phobias at all. And I'm a scuba diver. I'm certified to search and rescue diver. I can be 120 foot underwater in pitch black and take a nap. Doesn't bother me a bit. But the thought of flying terrifies me.
Yeah, until you get in the plane, and then you're like, oh, it's not so bad. Right, Cornell? Tell them.
You just look at the map and you look at how many planes are in the air at one time.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. You can hardly even see the map for the planes. I know they're all
And,
bigger than they really should be, but yeah.
It's not as bad as you might think, David.
I don't like flying.
I'm definitely afraid of heights. I can't even go to a skyscraper and go to the window without being like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely afraid of heights. But it's something totally different than that.
Yeah, it is. It feels different. Like I went up to the top of the Empire State Building and looked out, and it has a big railing, like it's 12 feet high. And you're looking down on buildings that would dwarf you if you're on the ground. And my legs froze. I had to go back inside. I couldn't do it. I don't know what it was. It wasn't just heights. It was like, if I really wanted, I could jump up on those railings and throw myself over. And there was this like intrusive thought, and I think that's what some people with anxiety have when they're driving along the highway. They're like, I could just pull this steering wheel over to the left and crash into ongoing traffic. A lot of people get that kind of those intrusive thoughts in their head.
Yeah.
But that's one I had, and it freaked me out. I'm like, never again.
Yeah, David.
So you don't mind flying though, right, Cornell?
I don't mind flying, no.
Yeah. Me neither.
No, it doesn't bother me because once you're in there and it starts, you forget that you're on a plane.
You do. I was trying to tell Dave that before. Basically, the worst part for me, and it's not really worst, but the most adrenaline part, I guess, would be just the takeoff for me.
Yeah,
coming down,
and you're on your side and you're looking out the window.
Yeah, and you're turning, and you're like, oh, look at that. Yeah.
But
a lot of people get freaked out about the landing, but to me, that's just like coasting in, like not a problem for me.
Yeah, camping out in the mountains by myself, no problem. The thought of getting on an airplane, terrifying. But maybe someday.
Ohio,
you can do it. It's not that hard, man.
How long a drive is it to Ohio from down here?
14 hours, I think.
That's 14 hours. Yeah.
Instead of 2 in a plane, or 2 in a plane.
Yeah, well, I'd probably drive.
There's a point where you just kind of resign yourself to the fact that you're that high up in the air and you're not scared anymore.
No.
Because you're either going to crash or you're going to land. It's just between those two options. So.
Right. And then you think it's the safest form of travel there is, as far as accidents and things like that compared to cars and trains and boats.
But a phobia is not rational. That's the thing. I'm afraid of
spiders. That's true. Not rational.
It doesn't matter if they're poisonous or not. If they're just big and hairy, they freak me out. I don't care if they're as harmless as a puppy.
I think that's why Cornell doesn't come down here in the summertime.
No, it's not that. It just happened that way.
Yeah, I'm just kidding, by the way. But Will, and we'll get to the No Such Thing podcast too. But Will, what have you got going on with your YouTube channel?
I just released a video about the Glenn Thomas story that happened in Washington State there on that rock pile. Other than that, I had been taking it easy for a while because I have some things in my life that take precedent at the moment.
Right.
So I had to take it easy for a moment, but I'm trying to get back into it now. I'm working on another video about the Mount St. Helens, Ape Canyon, and then other reports from the forest ranger that was actually there that saw the men come off the mountain and come into the forest. The ranger office, the one that was there, he actually had a report made up, and a newspaper guy was there and wrote it down. And so I found all that information. I'm gonna make a new video about it and add that into it. So you guys stay tuned. It should be a really good one. Yeah.
Well, that's neat.
And I don't know if you guys know the story about Mr. Carter that in 1950 that was flying down the mountain, a skier, and they never found his body. Did you guys ever hear about that one?
You went on the skis?
Yeah.
Skiing? Yeah, it's Chapman, wasn't it? Was it Chapman or Carter?
Carter.
Yeah, that was, of course, they didn't find footprints or anything there. He would just, something scared him so bad he was taking crazy chances. But yeah, Will, you've done a really good job on reporting those old historical encounters with the, locations and all of that stuff. And I've learned some stuff that I had overlooked from. And I mean, I've heard of all of them, obviously, but as far as some of them not been on my mind for a long time, and watching you recount those in detail like that is very helpful. Matter of fact, I have recorded a video, and I did this Sunday on the Seraphine Long case, the girl that was supposedly, or allegedly, I should say, abducted by the Sasquatch. And you did a very good job on that. And I recounted it like you did. But then I give some comments on my thoughts on what we learned from that. So be watching for that. I should have it edited and put up in a couple of days.
Looking forward to it.
But yeah, I'll always look forward to seeing what you pull out of the archives, so to speak. But the one that Will just put up there on that mountaintop in Oregon, where the Sasquatch was looking for rodents in the rocks and just lifting those rocks up and putting them out. I mean, John Green reported on that way back there as well, and took something with a lot of strength to lift those out and pile them up like they do.
It definitely did. And, they gave the measurements of, they weighed a lot of the rocks, and some of the smaller rocks were like 20, 30 pounds, but some of the bigger ones were like 200 pounds that they found stacked on these stacks. So clearly, and according to his account, the creature would just like jerking them out and throwing them. You know what I mean? Like no big deal. Like, get out of my way, get out of my way, get out of my way. I'm trying to get down to the bottom to get to these rats. And clearly that would take some superhuman strength to be able to do that.
And the fact there was no machinery up there to do it.
No.
So that's a very compelling old account there.
Yeah.
And I'd actually not even given any thought to that one in a long time till I seen you. You sent me that message with the link to it and said, "Hey, tell me what you think of this." That's good job.
Yeah.
Cornell, what have you had going on up in Massachusetts in the Bigfoot world, or the mysterious things of the No Such Thing podcast?
The last thing I had was Curious Cryptid, and that was like 4 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and I haven't really been getting, because my knee's like messed up. I got to go see about it, and I can't walk more than a mile without it really killing me. So it's like I haven't even been able to go out really. I haven't done anything at all.
Well, you took the kids to the beach. I saw that.
Yeah, a lot of kid stuff, but
yeah. I had no idea the water there in Massachusetts along the shores was so clear like that. That looked
tropical. Yeah, it's really nice.
That was beautiful. So, how far are you, Will, from like the area? Was it Salt Fork or something like that?
State Park.
Salt Fork State Park.
Yeah, it's about 2 hours from me. Logan, Ohio is about 2.5. Logan, Ohio is a little bit further south than Salt Fork. So it's not very far at all. I could drive down there, like I said, in a couple hours. It's south of Columbus. I live outside of Cleveland, so.
Oh, that's not too far.
No, it's not that big of a deal.
It's like you're right beside Route 90, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Route 90 goes right from here to Ohio. It's such a boring drive. You just go straight.
It goes all the way to the West Coast, actually.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can take it all the way out there.
Yeah.
So
'cause I
it's not
remember.
that far of a drive, David. Listen, once you get on that airplane and fly up to Columbus, and Cornell flies into Columbus,
I'll
I could
drive.
drive to Columbus and pick you guys up, and we could go to the cabin. All you got to do is get on the plane. I got the cabin. I got the food. I got the transportation. All you guys got to do is get on the plane.
Yeah, every time when you guys come down here, whether it's Will or Cornell, y'all buy like chairs and sleeping pads and stuff like that at Walmart, and steaks to eat when we go out. I just feel like I get the better end of the deal, because when you leave some of the stuff here, and I use it on my. I'm not going to have to buy camp chairs for I don't know how long, because Cornell bought new ones both times he was down here. So.
Yeah.
And Elijah,
Yeah.
you've been on since. Yeah, you did. I think I had you and Cornell both on here after our trip down the Kiamichis there. And
a while ago.
Yeah, Chris, it was a great time. What was it, about 2 years ago now, Cornell?
It's got to be, yeah.
But yeah, for y'all that don't know, Cornell, when he came down that second time, he brought a really nice recorder. And Elijah was with us as well that time. And he set that recorder off in the woods. And when he got back to Massachusetts and started going through the files, found that he had picked up some very interesting vocalizations and other sounds in the woods around us. And
some weird noises.
And Will, where you and I went to, was the exact same spot. So the lay of the land. Basically, we're on the side of the mountain here, and you go down the hill from us. You're in these creek bottoms, which are pretty swampy, and then the ridge behind us, which would be going south, goes up when Elijah was with us, he tried to go to the top of the hill to see if he could get some cell phone signal, and never did. And you never did make it to the top, did you?
No, because every time you got to the point that looked like the top, there was just another
ridge.
Yeah, I know me and Cornell was a little bit, or I don't know if Cornell was, but I was getting a little concerned when he didn't come back. So I'm like, man, you get up there away from any marked trails or whatever, you're going to get turned around pretty easy. Elijah's being attacked by a dog man.
And then, Elijah, do you remember when you guys were moving the truck to the new campsite and I was just walking along and I was taking video? And I didn't notice it at first, but then someone pointed it out to me. There's a huge wood knock. Just as I'm talking, I don't know how I didn't hear it, but there's a huge thump at one point in the video.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know how I missed it, but it's so blatant. And it was just during the day, just one big thump. And it sounded like a typical wood knock.
That's really weird because, I was up in front of the truck helping Dad figure out, the way. So I didn't really hear much of anything other than the truck. But
Yeah, because it was really quiet and all of a sudden just.
Yeah, because you were hanging back a good ways.
Yeah.
And that area's off in the back there. When I came home, I clearly went on Google Earth and looked and topography and all that. Clearly, we're going to keep Area W secret, Area Wilbank secret. But yeah, I went on there and I'm looking. I'm like, wow, that's kind. I wouldn't want to call it like a box canyon back in there, but it's kind of like its own little contained little area up back in there. If we would keep going down into those bottoms a little bit further,
did you find
out a little bit, but it doesn't really go anywhere. It goes up into these box areas where anything could be up in there.
Did you find those bottoms creepy, Will?
Yeah, well,
Did you go down at night?
At night, yes, but during the day it was more beautiful to me. I was just looking at the sights and everything because I'm from Ohio, and down there in Oklahoma, it's a lot different ecosystem, if that makes sense, So
right.
I was checking things out. I was like, "Wow, what is that noise?" He's like, "Oh, it's just a bird." I'm like, okay, So just there were new sights and sounds, things like that.
But when Will was down there, Cornell, we were hearing something displacing the rocks that was moving around. Of course, we didn't see what was doing it, so that could be any number of things. But we left camp and walked toward it. And we were actually hearing movement on 3 sides of camp there. And when we came back into camp, I had and this is all on the video. I recorded this. This actually happened. When we came back into camp, I had my little camera, just a little cheap Amazon camera that has night vision on. It actually recorded the sound of something throwing a rock into our camp. Which
that's the one you got in video, right?
Yeah, I got it on video. Now, that's not proof of whatever. We didn't see what threw it, but I mean, what can throw a rock?
Yeah,
a person.
It was just me and Dave there. I mean,
there's no one else around there.
We were right next to each other. I didn't, so.
A skeptic will say,
you can hear.
A skeptic will say that, there's people camped probably over the ridge. There's no one around there.
No.
Yeah, if you've been down there, it's not an area you just walk into or drive. Well, right. If anybody drives anywhere within a mile, you're going to hear them trying to. I mean, y'all both, all of us here know how difficult the terrain is to drive to that deeper camp spot there. But there. I mean, if somebody was walking to our camp from the north, the south, or the east, which would be the opposite side there, they would have one heck of a long walk. But to a skeptic, a rock being thrown, as Brent, he was busting somebody for doing a rock throwing hoax or whatever. So really, it's interesting to us that we're there, Will, for our own. And all I would say is I just hope people that know me and know my character know that I would not hoax anything like that. But it's in the scheme of things, it's proof of something strange happening to you and I that were there. And if you watch the video, what's the first thing I say is, "Did you do that, Will? Did you do that?" And you can hear it. You can hear it in his voice, like, "No, bro, I'm right."
I'm like, what? I'm like, "No, what the hell is that?"
I turn around and I look at him. He's right there at my shoulder, and he's holding his phone record in one hand and my parabolic microphone in the other. I'm like, "Yeah, you did." And he's like, later he's asked, he's like, why do they do that?
What was that about? Wasn't that after we got that big whoop, like right behind us? So
okay, if you remember the big whoop, we were sitting there, and of course, keeping in mind there was a burn ban, because it was really anyone in the chat or whatever that was in Oklahoma last year, that was an extremely dry summer and fall, and it was a burn ban, so we didn't have a campfire. I bought a camp stove to cook those delicious steaks that Will brought, and Cornell did as well. But we were sitting there and we were listening to the different things. As Will said, he asked, "What's that?" I said, "That's a bird. That's a bird." And this real powerful. I mean, you could feel it. It was so powerful behind us, just like whoop, whoop, real loud, and
it made us both jump, like, out of our
chairs.
We
both got to our feet.
Like, what was that? Like, that type of movement,
And then shortly after that is when we started hearing the rocks displaced. And Cornell, you remember just to when you go over the ridge down into those bottoms that we were down in, it's real rocky, and there's these kind of, I don't know, gullies that go down in there. We were hearing the rocks being displaced in one of those gullies.
Something's walking up it or something?
Or down it, basically, is what it sounded like. So what we did is Will and I left camp and started going in that direction. And of course, you kind of know nothing's going to stay there and wait on you, but I just hate to stay in camp, But anyway, we didn't. But it was when we got back into camp and we went over that ridge down into those bottoms and then came back up after a while. And I don't remember how much time actually passed during that, but it wasn't terribly long, no more than probably 45 minutes, maybe.
I was going to say about an hour, maybe 45 minutes. Yeah.
But it was when we got back into camp, and I was just about to turn the camera with night vision off. and I was just elated that we was able to catch the sound of that rock landing outside of well, actually right into camp, pretty much.
I was a little apprehensive. I'm going to be honest with you. I was like, "Well, what's going on?" Because that whoop that came from behind, and then that rock, and then, like you said, the thing, and I'm like, "Are they trying to surround us here? What are they doing?"
It's
Then in
freaky.
my back of my mind, I'm like, to be honest with you, like they're harmless. They're not going to bother us. But then on this other shoulder, I had an encounter story that I told about Oklahoma where these animals rip people's heads off, and I'm like, "Oh boy!" Like it's, you know what I mean. So,
now, where did you hear something rip people's heads off?
it's that LaFleur story, remember, that we had the discussion about.
Oh, yeah, that's
going to be true. Yeah.
What?
Still, it's in the back of your mind. No, this is that area that supposedly that happened, and
what was the guy's name? Is supposedly the Light Horse Army guy or whatever.
Joshua LaFleur.
Joshua LaFleur or whatever. Yeah. And I mean, it was a story made up for the internet back a long, long time ago. And I know y'all are seeing this too. There's a lot of those old either hoaxed photographs or hoax stories from way back that are making the rounds again. Brent, he knows this very well. And they're being shown as the real thing. One of my favorites is Ivan Marks back. And I talked with the tall ones, Brent, on this on my last podcast. That Ivan Marks back in the 60s, early 70s, whatever, was making these suits of a Bigfoot. The Bigfoot had big ears and his testicles hang down and stuff. I mean, that wouldn't even work. Those things get ripped off when you're running through the brush.
Right.
And now I'm seeing them on some of the Facebook Bigfoot pages, like found on a game camera or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Or the one of the chimpanzee Oliver, showing up, said this was found on a game camera. And it's like, no, it's not. That was a chimpanzee. His name was Oliver, actually. He was a circus chimp, and he had a spinal injury or something that caused him to have to walk upright. And he's terrifying looking. And here lately, the AI pictures of the Bigfoot, like this was found from the late 1800s. And the thing is, they really don't look that real.
That's what I was going to say. Like the AI is going to be the next thing that people are going to try to trick people with. But you're right. If you know what to look for, you're like, that's not doesn't even look real.
Well, have you seen what they're doing with Patty now? She's got stuff in her teeth and everything.
Yeah, that's just silly. That is silly.
That. I saw MP Davis put out a new video about the Patty with the new. I guess there was supposedly a. I don't know. From the main copy, they have a new frame or something that they found or something, and he enhanced and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, enhancement is adding pixels. It's
right.
Like
it
adding
is
information that's not there.
Yeah, that's always my point.
And I'm not.
Wasn't there a person in the eyeball or something? Do you remember the one with the person in the eyeball? They had Patty really close up, and you could see the guy's face in the eyeball. I think it was somebody trolling them. I don't know. Brent knows the full story behind that.
Well, see, here's the thing with that enhancement photo also. Like they made the face look a lot better. But if you look, it also gave the creature a hole in the head. You know what I mean? Like there's actually a hole right here that you're like, why is there a hole in that creature's head? So, if you want to say, oh, look, it makes it more realistic, you can't ignore that part of it where it gives a hole in the head, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and B, I agree there. Brent's doing a great job there. But yeah, that most recent thing of Patty, it's a little bit too much artistic
license
privilege or something being done with that. I mean, there's only so much you can do there. Hey, everybody in chat, if you have a question you want to ask anybody, if you don't mind, put it in caps, and I'll do my best to not miss that.
Let me check my battery. Hold on. Okay. At some point, I'm going to have to hold on.
Cornell having
on to charger and talk through the phone. Sounds
okay,
terrible.
gotcha. Let's see. Where did that? Brian Warfield says, I reported that would knock, Cornell.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I don't know how I didn't catch that. Thanks, Brian.
Did you see his next comment?
No.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up here.
Okay.
He said, only heard it because I was using headphones.
Yeah.
But, Cornell, when he got back home from that trip and digging through the files, he had some of those sounds were after we had went to sleep. And, of course, most of you here has heard it was funny now looking back at it, but Cornell had a pretty scary thing happen later in the night. But when he got home, he's finding he got one really loud whoop
that was
there. And we had all kinds of racket going on in the woods around, as far as wood knocks, which you got a really loud wood knock, and there was something clacking rocks together down in the creek and all. So it was an interesting couple of nights. And the same way, Will, you and I stayed 2 nights down there. Cornell, when he came down, both times we stayed a couple of nights down. Yeah. Elijah, you're muted. Did you know it?
Yeah.
That was crazy because when Mark's whole thing was going on, he had a live camera feed, and he gave me the password so I could watch it. And I was just sitting, and it was a storm one night, and you could hear all of this stuff going on in the underbrush. And it was like so creepy that there was a thunderstorm, and these things were on his property and stuff, and you were like, what is that walk? And you kept thinking you heard stuff and seen stuff, and it was so creepy. I was just sitting looking at that for like an hour.
Yeah. Of course, Mark's deal, he had some weird stuff going on around his house. That the dogs acting crazy, and some of the stuff he picked up on his cameras and all. Now that area that we all went to down there, that's not just and Brent said they could be testing to see how you respond with the wood knocks or they're tossing the rocks. Now, Will, we had the rocks thrown into our camp. That is not the first time that has happened in that area. What brought me to that area in the first place was back in 2002. Had been later in 2002. Wait a minute, it's 2002. I've got the date written down at home, but it's right there. A gentleman that breaks horses for a living. He would go down into that valley, and he'd ride horses down in there. And one time when he was riding that trail by himself, and man, this guy's a cowboy. His camping, he would just throw his saddle on the ground and use that for a pillow. And I like the outdoors, but down there with all the
snakes,
cottonmouths, copperheads, rattlers are thick. I would not sleep on the bare ground. No. But he was riding his horse down that little trail that goes down in there, and this Bigfoot walked out into the trail in front of him, looked at him, and then rushed back off into the woods. And that report got to me through a neighbor that knew him, and I set up a meeting with him to talk to him about it, and he agreed and told me about it. And I remember him saying, he says, "What are these things? Are they apes or what?" And I was like, "Well, we really don't know what they are." Yeah. So that's why I started going down there. And the first camp trip down there with a friend of mine, who's Brian Baker, he was on here a few months ago. Whatever that was down there, threw a very large rock against a tree just outside of our camp. And when I say a large rock, I'm talking 25, 30-pound rock, and bounced it off a tree outside of our camp. And another time we were down there, we were rocking. Okay, where we all camped, how the road part went over and down into those bottoms?
Yeah.
Okay, we were walking down that. Of course, back then, this is early 2000s, like around 2003 or so, there wasn't a place cut out to camp up there. It was just woods, and something was tossing like pebbles, not big rocks, but tossing smaller rocks over that ridge at us. So that has that's what's kept my interest in going back there. You know, I go down there a lot by myself. I'm not too concerned about whatever, trying to hurt me. I mean, if it's out to get me, it would have, I think, done it a long time ago.
Well,
Sure.
would you be able to? Would you solo camp down there, Will?
In Oklahoma, an area that I don't know, I don't think that I could do it, Cornell.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to
Like
sleep.
up here in Ohio, I could probably do it, but some area like that, I don't think so.
I'd need
I'd
a
have
bottle
to
of
be-
Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
Seriously, if things really hit the fan, I'd just reach, break glass, drink whiskey. That'd be so scary.
Cornell, that wouldn't help your situation.
But at least you wouldn't feel it.
You wouldn't
know?
feel it.
Well, at least you get to sleep, That's the thing.
No. I tell you what, my feeling on that, I think the only monsters in the woods are the occasional bad person. I think that the Bigfoot, they're just a natural part of our environment. They just are very elusive and smart enough to know that we're not in their best interest to get too close to.
Well, that too, Dave. Remember that old couple was camped at the entrance to the place that we were in?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that couple were sitting ducks if anybody was around there that was, any meth heads or anything.
Yeah, because they were at the very entrance to this valley. I'll say valley, canyon, whatever you want to call it.
They were totally defensive. They could have been jacked very easily.
Yeah, that place is easy to get to, and I don't like camping that close to the entrance. But Elijah, you want to throw your hat in the ring here? You haven't been saying much.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, to your point of all the snakes and stuff that are out there, I would bring that even back around to the point of, like, would somebody be messing with us? That's a long ways, a whole lot of snake bites and potentially other predators to risk just for a joke. So
especially at night, Elijah, you're right.
Yeah, like, that's the thing is, I don't know. It was all night activity, and we were the only ones out there for a long ways. So,
and if somebody was coming through the woods, even if you didn't hear them, which you would with that topography, with all those rocks and all that, you would see the lights, right? You would see someone's flashlight, like you make a mistake, through the woods somewhere. You would see a flash of a light or something.
Yeah,
unless they're like have night vision binoculars out there to trick, And I kind of seriously doubt that.
Well, and even like whenever I was climbing up those ridges, the highest one that I got to, I kind of tried to get a good lay of like how close the nearest town was.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I could even see the nearest town. I could see like a ranch way out of the canyon, but even that you couldn't tell what it was, save for the, metal roofs and stuff.
The nearest small town, I mean, there are now not in that valley or canyon that we were in. Nobody lives in that area.
No.
Now at the entrance to the main road, there's a couple of houses, maybe farmers or something, and there are those scattered along the main road. But the nearest small town is about 20 miles as the crow flies. I mean, you guys have drove. First time Cornell was there, it was pitch black when we were driving in there, and he was like, "Oh man, where are we going?"
Yeah, it was like so
well,
dark.
Okay, and that wasn't a good case for us because I think they had just released a story about actual cannibals in that part of the country or that part of the state, right?
Oh, did you guys know about that? Will
Dave told me about that.
I did not.
No, there really was. I'd made a joke one time.
Will, I'm sorry, man.
Okay. Yeah, guys in the chat, if you're from Oklahoma, you probably heard of this. Brent, I know that and Chris, y'all probably have not. But I used to make these jokes about the only thing you got to worry about in the Kiamichis is cannibal hillbillies. And it turns out there were.
Wow.
Now, not down where we were, but somebody brought it to my attention. I thought, no, y'all's making it up. But if I get the story right, there were a couple. They weren't from Oklahoma. They were from like down in Texas or somewhere, and they bought a place way back in the middle of nowhere, and they had some kind of weird castration cannibal fetish or something, and they when they raided it, they found like body parts of people in their freezer and stuff.
Oh my!
I wish I
goodness.
had
And,
a link to that story.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wish I could find that.
Somebody like left there or something. He was bleeding out, and he made it to law enforcement in McAllister, and they're like, "You did what?" But apparently, these people were going there voluntarily.
They were offering like a
out
medical
of state.
service.
So
They
it's
were
like,
offering what?
It was like a medical service of some type that they were offering, and it was
They
like,
were-
I mean, what else do you expect whenever your healthcare is this expensive, though, right? Like you get cannibal.
Oh, yeah.
No. It wasn't like that. It was a weird fetish thing. Like they were castrating people and eating the product of that. It was
Oh my
stuff,
goodness!
man. But anyway, yeah, Chris, that's a thing. If it's strange, it probably true. And in this case, unfortunately, it was. So
Man,
I guess Will and Cornell were out there. Just don't sleep on your back.
I sleep in my belly.
Oh,
I
covered
was
myself
wondering
up
why
in
you
the
wanted me to,
wall.
why you wanted us to sleep on the back of that truck. Like, you know,
you know, I had not even thought of that's been what, about 3 or 4 years ago. I hadn't even thought of that till you brought
Yeah.
that up, Elijah.
Yeah, that
Man,
was the
it's
talk.
so funny because my daughter, when I was going down there, she's like, "Where are you going? With
Oh,
who? Like,
Yeah,
in
my
the
wife
middle
was
of
the
where?"
Yeah.
by the way,
I
I
don't even know them.
I
I'm like,
think we
oh
got-
my goodness.
think we've got somebody watching the show that's yeah, my friend Shelly Harris. I've had her on here before. She has sent me a link to that story.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Man accused of performing illegal castration at cabin in Oklahoma woods says he's
wow.
a cannibal. Okay, I got to say this. Illegal castration as opposed to legal. I mean,
Yeah, like illegal castration.
oh boy.
Yeah, Heaven's Gate was doing that too. Remember they
Sound
were all
like
cutting
something
the
you do
penises
with
off.
cattle.
Yeah, Davis, y'all count me out now.
Cornell,
Yeah,
what were you saying about the Heaven's Gate?
Heaven's Gate, a couple of those guys cut their own manhood off.
Yeah, that was
became
because
eunuchs,
they,
yeah.
Like
those-
no anesthetic, just like with a knife.
Oh,
you know that whole, and you know what gets me about, and Cornell, you studied these cult things and whatever, is a lot of these people that fall into these cults like that are highly educated people.
Yeah.
That there's something about the human brain that what makes a person fall for like those cults and stuff has nothing to do with the like IQ
Intelligence, that's right. Yeah, that's
No.
what Doug Kramer was saying. He has his own channel and he was in Scientology and he has a couple of videos on that. It's nothing to do with IQ. There's something else.
I think it has to do with the sense of wanting to belong to something, belong to a group or
Yeah.
a structure. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Yeah.
Now this is, well, it's not really funny, but one of the, okay, you remember Star Trek, the lady on the deck, Lieutenant Uhura?
Yeah.
Okay, she was on the spaceship, right? The Heaven's Gate cult, what was they wanting to do? They'd kill themselves is what they did, and their spirit or whatever would go to a spaceship in the
Yeah.
tail of the
Behind the heel Bob
Behind a
Comet.
comment,
Right.
yeah.
One of the gentlemen that did that committed suicide to be on that comet was her real life brother.
Ooh.
Really?
Yeah, I was watching. They did a special on that cult on, I believe CNN did a 3-part series. It's called Heaven's Gate: The Cult of Cults, and it's just, I'm a pretty analytical person. I tell people around here I would make a horrible cult member, and Elijah really would. Elijah would drive them completely nuts because he's like me, he questions everything, and they'd be like, "Hey, you need to do this. You need to." And I'm same way with like televangelists. If they say you want to be right with the Lord, they dig in that pocket and give me your money, and Lord make you rich too. I'm like, no, why would I do that? Why don't you get a day job? Anyway, but anyway, wait, I'm missing one here. Chris Kimball said there was a cult in Southwest Florida back in 1900, and all the people were highly cultured from Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, listen, an education does not equate to intelligence, though. I mean, people conflate that all
Very
the time.
true.
They think just because you go to a 4-year institution, you're intelligent. It's not the case at all.
If you go for 4 years,
I know several people that have never been to college, but are the smartest people you'll ever meet in your life. You know what I mean? And then on the opposite spectrum, I know people that are like have a master's degree, and you're like, you have zero common sense here. You don't know how to think. You know what I mean, for yourself or anything. You know, so people that conflate the two, it just drives me a little bit crazy.
Okay, y'all's gonna have to read the what David Weathers said here and see if you get it.
Oh my God. What flavor was it?
I love the Jonestown. That's one of the best stories in history.
Yeah, but do you get the joke he's making there?
I was going to make a punchline. Oh, punch. It wasn't
Good.
actually cool. You know, it was Flavor Aid. It wasn't Kool-Aid. It was a Kool-Aid knockoff because it was cheaper.
So
people
they
drink the Kool-Aid, but it was
they didn't even spring for real Kool-Aid. Man,
yeah,
it's terrible.
Cornell, on that note, for Jonestown, did you ever run across anything about like strange deaths reported by different countries, like autopsies of the bodies? Like there were some found with like different causes of death, or
I've heard a lot of things about like the military actually went in there and took a lot of them out and that kind of stuff. I've heard all those conspiracies. I haven't dug too deep into them.
Yeah.
But the thing is, as Cornell found out,
you got commies, right? Basically.
Yeah, you got to be careful how deep you talk about that stuff. I think they knocked off one of your videos one time, didn't they, Cornell, from talking about some of that?
Oh yeah, Balenciaga. Yeah.
So we've got to be. I don't get that, but anyway. Bigfoot's a pretty safe one to talk about so far.
That's that's why I don't think the government is covering. The government doesn't cover it up because they never take anything down.
Yeah, I made a little video, and I don't know if everybody in chat's seen this, but I did a public service video on a Sunday, and I went out and camped a little bit on the Sunday. I mean, on the back of my property there at Gertie, and I'm going to put this video up, let y'all see it. I call it a public service.
You haven't seen it, Cornell?
Good to go.
How to call a social. How to call a dog man.
Was that dog treats?
Yeah. Here, boy.
What about mermaids?
Anyway, no, here's how that bag's not got any dog treats left in it, but that thing's still going home. All right, had to shut that down. But anyway, I was over at my mom's house, and she always has these dog treats for her dog. And I gave the last one. I thought, you know what? I'm going to take this bag out there and make this silly video. David Perkins says that got his dog's attention.
That's why I turned my mic off.
Chris, I tell you what, Chris makes a very good point here. Chris Kimball said Bigfoot groups are also a cult.
Yeah.
Depends on the group.
I'm
if you got a group thing.
Some of them are, especially nowadays, what we see on like the, open dialogue. Okay, if they're discussing like the Patterson film or some other thing like that, if you have Okay, let's go this way. And I'm not going to be critical of anyone involved in the DNA study, but you've got a couple of schools of thought. You got Melba Ketchum, that's done her thing, and then you've got another gentleman named Dr. Haskell Hart, which is in opposition, not opposition, but disagreement with her results, or what she believes she came up with. Now, I'm going to say this: I don't know enough about DNA to do anything about it. Now,
Right.
you can check the backgrounds of all people involved and stuff like that and come to your own conclusion. But you can be in a group about that, talking about it. If you say, you know what, I agree with Haskell Hart, then you're going to have the people on Ketchum's side just mad about it.
Yeah.
And vice versa, where to me, something like this mystery, that should be open dialogue.
Yeah, true.
Talk about it. It's not religion.
No.
Okay. But some people kind of treat it as such. Now, here's my thoughts on the DNA thing. And Brent did on the tall ones, did a very in-depth video on all of that, which I really enjoyed.
That was fantastic.
To me, if you've got two people of science examining the same stuff and they have a disagreement, as far as one of them thinks yes it is, one of them thinks no it's not, in the spirit of science, if they're both sincere about it, why don't they both come together and sit down across a table and tell why they think this way or that way about it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, have a good old debate on it.
I mean, go ahead, Elijah.
Hang on.
Or maybe one of the parties doesn't want the debate.
Well, obviously,
Yeah.
that's obvious, but the thing is, why? I mean, if that's the way science goes forward, they come up with their theories about something, they debate it vigorously, and then go forward with it. And it's same in this Bigfoot subject. I mean, we've got a lot of different views on this. Some people, is it the flesh and blood, or some kind of going more into the paranormal. You've got people like Dr. Jeff Meldrum and John Bindernagel, which I'd actually met and talked with him, that leaned toward it being possibly a remnant of Gigantopithecus. And I'm not in that camp, but I respect greatly the effort that they put into this. And what else? I mean, there's such a wide variety of thoughts on that. And I'm just like, hey, sit down, tell me what you think.
I think the scientists go to the Gigantopithecus because that's the only scientific proof that they can latch onto. And as a scientist, they need something. You know what I mean? Like Dr. Meldrum, even if he thought that the creatures were like an ancient tribe of Native Americans, like the Coelitics or something like that, he can't really say that because there's no proof out there in the scientific community to prove what he's trying to say. His colleagues would be like, what are you talking about? There's zero proof of that. At least with Gigantopithecus, there's something back there in the timeline that he can latch onto and be like, this is a possibility. That's just my opinion on why they latch onto that. I don't know. You'd have to ask him more about that, but I
think you're right. In their
circles, they can't go out of that. They can't put themselves out there too much.
In their profession that they are experts at. Okay,
yeah,
that is the closest thing that they know of that could possibly fit the bill. Now, me, I'm not. I think it's and again, I can be wrong, and I highly respect Dr. Meldrum and them. He's smarter than me, obviously. But to me, and I talk about this more in depth when I on the video I'm about to release about the Seraphine Long story. If these creatures, and there's other things in it too, and I'll go more in depth on it, if they can cross with us, produce offspring with humans, that's not an ape. or at least not a great ape like a. And there's nothing in the fossil record about Gigantopithecus that would even insinuate that it was a bipedal ape. I mean, the closest thing it's that they can find it resembling is an orangutan, just a supersized one. Again, I could be wrong, but I mean, these are things. We don't have one in a zoo.
No.
And these things have thwarted our best efforts to get a hold of one. So I think there's just more to it than that. And, you've got, the native cultures, the way they look at them, some of them are like they are wild people, and Seraphine Long's thing, they were wild people. They were wild giants that lived up in the mountains, So, it's a heck of a fun mystery.
I fall on your side of the camp, David. I believe they're a human type creature, not, the ape. Well, according to science, we're all apes, but you know the difference I'm trying to talk about here. I think that, in my opinion, that they could be like a type of Neanderthal that lived through, that came through, that made it through. Out of
like that,
things like that. A massive kind of humanoid creature like that, and the Native Americans ran into them, and probably interacted with them, according to a lot of these stories. And these creatures actually spoke the Douglas the Douglas tongue from British Columbia. That's the tongue that they use, the Douglas tribe up there. So, they have to have some kind of human capabilities, thinking and processing things like that, to be able to speak, correct? So to me, that pushes it more into that probably Neanderthal type creature, like from the past. But that's just, a hypothesis. Clearly, we have no proof,
And again, this is relying on if those stories are fact.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we don't actually know. But that's a recent enough old story that Seraphine, what does she live to? What?
She was in her 80s when she told the story in the 1920s of J.W. Burns.
Okay.
So this happened to her probably in the 1850s, maybe something like that.
So mid 1800s,
1860s, 50s, 60s, something like that.
And I went and I ran off several of the accounts that J.W. Burns went into, and he actually believed that these creatures were up there.
Oh yeah.
And he was a teacher, on the reservation or whatever up there. So a lot of the folklore actually has roots in facts. So it's very intriguing at that. Elijah, do you have a thought on that?
Not really at the moment. I'm trying to play toggle with the mic during barking spats.
Hey, why don't you bring your dog man up there? Elijah's got a real dog man.
Hang on just a second.
This creature has mauled me several times. This dog is on crack or something. My God. And it's huge.
I mean, I'd love to speak to someone who actually saw a dog man, and I'd love to sit down with them and hear their story, because there have been some people that have told Bigfoot stories and they're totally believable. Like Perry, for instance.
Look, there it is.
I'd love a dog. We've got
that dog is huge. And when I first met that dog, went over to Elijah's house. Elijah and his girlfriend.
Wow. Yeah,
that dog hit me like a ton of bricks, and it's not mean, but it wants to play, and it's hyperactive like you wouldn't believe.
She's a year and a half. I mean,
jumps up on you and claws.
She doesn't know her own strength. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what were we saying, Cornell?
No, I'd love to hear from someone credible that has saw a dog man. I've heard people credible talking about Bigfoot, but I haven't really heard. I haven't sat face to face with someone and talked about Dogman. All I've heard is secondhand stories. Yeah. I don't know anybody who's seen one.
I don't know a lot about it either, to be honest with you.
I mean, it must be terrifying if it was true, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, seeing a wolf in the wilderness is terrifying enough. Imagine, seeing a dog man would be 100 times worse, maybe.
Yeah. Elijah, what kind of dog is that?
She is Great Pyrenees, Alaskan Malamute, American Staffordshire Terrier, and then we think the last little bit is either attributed to Native American dog breeds that we don't have record of, or coyote.
Did you get its 23andMe done?
Yeah.
No, I'm
really
kidding.
did?
No, we did.
Did
yeah,
you?
I love that dog.
No, can you do that?
I didn't
Yeah.
know you could do that.
Yeah, you
Oh.
can go to a vet clinic and they'll take a DNA sample. My girlfriend works at a vet, so
Oh shit.
that's
Nice.
You know, well, why couldn't you? Now, this, you know, you in chat, if you ever thought of this, if you can get a little DNA sample off whatever, that's send it to 23andMe. If you think you got Bigfoot DNA, could you not send that off to 23andMe?
Yeah, that's true.
It would come back as inconclusive, probably.
You have to spit in a vial.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't want to send, you know, precious cargo through the mail like that,
So
would
the
you?
game plan
No.
is we're gonna chase it into a net next time we go out in the woods, right?
Yeah.
And then, do a 23andMe for him.
But no,
Just hold it down.
Cornell was saying he'd like to sit down with someone who claims to have seen a dog man.
Yeah.
You know,
That'd be interesting.
I was talking to some different people about that, and there's a couple of different views as far as what it's supposed to look like. One gentleman that's a friend of mine is taking reports of stuff like that all over Oklahoma, and says one, it's like a quadruped, just like a big wolf or something. And to me, well, why wouldn't it just be a big wolf dog hybrid or something like that? And then you got the other side that says it's bipedal and like the werewolves of the movies. Now, this is where I will stand very firmly on that. That is not a viable, naturally occurring biological entity, and I think that would have to fall into the realm of the paranormal.
I agree.
Because I just don't.
It's like some Egyptian type creature, you know, like
Anubis or something like that.
Yeah, half man, half animal.
So,
yeah,
I've never found evidence of anything like that personally. And again, I think it would fall into the realm of like demons, ghosts, and other paranormal entities that personally I couldn't do anything about it anyway, if that's what it was. So
to tell you the truth, I think the supernatural would explain a lot of this. If the supernatural existed, it would explain almost everything. Orbs, UFOs, Dogman, you know?
Well, and that's sorry, there's Joe Rogan had a guest on. I'm blanking on his name now, but he's a physicist. And one of the things that he was talking about is like so much of our science today is like almost like nerfed a little bit because we're having to play in the box. We're not allowed to go and see and test the real parameters. Like it's good. I think he said it was good exercise. It is to science what like jujitsu is to fighting. Like it's training, but it's not the whole deal.
Huh.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead, Will. I'm talking too much anyway.
I was going to say I ran into some when I was researching the other day that was pretty interesting to me. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, but you know how these creatures throw the rocks and things, and they were saying that it was an old Native American from probably the 1920s, 30s, something like that. He was saying these creatures use the rocks for hunting, that they kill small birds, squirrels, raccoons, things like that. He was saying that they could throw that rock just as well as a human could like shoot at 22. So they're really proficient with the small rocks, hunting the small game, and that's how they supplement their diet.
That makes sense.
I never really thought about that before, but that makes a lot of sense, you know?
Well, like to that point, you could probably even look to like tribal peoples and, you know, in our world today that are still kind of very rudimentary in their skills or like tools that they use. Yeah. And I'm sure that they use rocks and things very similarly. Like that's, you know, practice makes perfect for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I found it fascinating. I'm like, wow, that makes a lot of sense there. I didn't really put it together like that, but.
Well, Will, I mean, the story that I'm making the video on and you did about Seraphine Long, look at all of the things that the Sasquatch people, which referred to them, is up there. Fire, animal skins,
Yeah.
You know, if that was the case, of course, things about like the ability to make fire, that, to my knowledge, is the only account that I'm familiar with that had that. That in Alvin Ostman, there was woven like blanket type things in the Box Canyon where he was taken to.
Yes, but he made his own fire. And with the
Yeah.
Seraphine Long, I'm thinking maybe. See, here's the thing. There's another account where a Native American girl is taken back to the creature's abode, and there's 2 other women there already that are older that have been kidnapped or abducted, however you want to call it.
Now, where's this from, Will?
It's an encounter from the Native American. I found it. I do a lot of research, like reading all these encounters, So it's a Native American. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, please do. That's,
But it's one of those where it's only like 2 paragraphs worth of an encounter. It isn't like a really detailed thing, and then they'll give you another encounter that's like a paragraph or 2. But yeah, there's one where they abducted a young girl, took her back to the abode, and there was 2 other older women that were there that were had there for a while, and they were making things like bread. So supposedly the creatures were going into these like camps or towns or whatever and stealing flour and things like that and bringing it back to the ladies whenever they needed it.
huh.
So
Well, that's interesting.
and so they had a fire in there. So my thinking is, when you hear stories about the fire with Seraphine Long, maybe it was her that made the fire. You know, I mean,
Now, it was there when she got there, though.
yeah, that's true. But my point on that was, a lot of times these stories get like interchanged, back then.
Oh, yeah. Don't I know it?
Yeah, so it's hard to like differentiate sometimes between.
But man, I'll tell you what. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cornell.
I was going to say that Will, has he ever covered this story? It's very interesting. It's a more modern one. Actually, Mr. Ballin covers it. There's a Marine that was chased off a mountain somewhere in Washington or in Oregon. And he was chased down a mountain by a Bigfoot throwing like logs at him. Have you ever heard that story?
Yeah, I got a video on that.
Yeah, did you?
Yep.
Yeah, he was interviewed and stuff. That was a very credible story.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really good one. Really good one, actually. Yeah, I did that one, I don't know, a couple years ago, maybe a year and a half.
Oh. Yeah, there's some accounts that are absolutely just unbelievable. I mean, I always go back to Kerry's account. That was probably the best Bigfoot story I ever heard. Yeah, and I mean, I used to watch his retelling of it over and over again because it was so entertaining. You know? And the details were always the same, even down to the finest.
Yeah.
And
like, you can tell. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, usually I could tell, like, by watching somebody like that, like, he's a little, I don't know.
Full of shit.
Yeah.
Well,
but not with him, man. Like, he was, I 100% truth for me. Like, I could just like read through like that sometimes, and I definitely believed.
He's just that kind of guy that wouldn't have. Like, he was an oil field worker, and
just the way he like got emotional when he was talking about stuff. You like, it's hard to fake that unless you're like a really good actor.
Well, plus he went back to the property and spoke to the family years ago or years later, and the guy confirmed his suspicions.
Yeah.
That lived in that property.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's some setup. If it was a setup, Jesus Christ, why would you bother?
I'll tell you this about Kerry. When him and his friend Brad came to Oklahoma to Livewire's place, Mark, to do the documentary that they did, we were, of course, I went down there as well. And that, I think I was there the second day, but that evening we were sitting around a campfire, and something was moving around in the woods. And of course, and there's a lady there too, D Sims, I think's her name. But I started walking off into the woods, and Kerry said, "I'm not going into the woods."
Yeah, he was freaked out by it.
And if you're ever around Kerry was a big guy. I mean, he was well over 6 foot tall and very fit. And I'm like, "Oh man, you look like," I told him, I said, "You look like you might come out on top in a wrestling match with a Bigfoot." But
I think he was 6'4".
He would not. he would not go into the woods after dark there. So whatever his encounter was down there in Mississippi, it shook him up to that, you know. And I'm not implying that was a Bigfoot in the woods. I mean, the woods were full of deer and stuff too. But
and he was a big athletic person. I remember one time I asked him a question about football or something. I said, "Man, were you like a linebacker?" You know what? He's so big, and he's like, "No, man, I was a wide receiver." I'm like, "Wow, like you know, that's a lot of athletes to play wide receiver." You know?
Yeah.
So
let's see here. I had something written down here, and I can't
check this.
So, you know, a lot of things that I'm doing lately is I'm researching a lot of the old time historical reports, like newspaper reports from like the 1800s. And a lot of those are even on the East Coast, like east of the Mississippi River. I guess back then there wasn't as many people, and like there were a lot more wild places around, you know, the development wasn't so developed. But there's some pretty interesting stories, even from like upstate New York, Connecticut, places like that I'm finding.
And I think it's real important to look at the historical accounts like that, just to see how much modern the subject matter today has been
shaped
to a point, shaped by things like one of those things was take what tree structures. Okay. That if you look on the Facebook Bigfoot groups, you would have to wonder, is there anything in the woods that Bigfoot didn't do?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Believe me, I know.
Here lately, apparently Bigfoot uses Viking runes to spell out things on the ground in glyphs. It's like, for crying out loud, where are we going with this?
It's like Blair Witch stuff.
But if you go back, look at the old story about Gilyuk, the cannibal giant in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how did he mark his territory? He would take the saplings, he would strip those down, and such like that. And throughout in the older days like that, that would be usually maybe some tree damage that was like that. And now it's twisted this way, bent that way. It's a Lincoln log house this way. It's a shelter this way. I saw one the other day that was sticks made into a teepee that had a log that was obviously cut with a chainsaw on both sides and put in like a chair that was.
It had a slide on one side.
Yeah, I mean it's just like how silly some of these things have gotten, you know. And I think it overshadows, it takes away from folks that are serious about really looking into this mystery, you know.
Yeah.
So the internet's been positive and negative on that account.
I'm sorry, did you ask me a question?
No, I said the internet in this case has been positive and negative both.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go in the next 15 minutes.
Okay. Well, anything you want? Well, let's give Cornell the floor a little bit here if he's going to have to go.
Oh shit! I don't have anything to report. I honestly don't think that there's anything to report in Massachusetts. Like, not that I've seen. I mean, I've heard a couple of stories here and there, but I don't know, it just doesn't seem to be.
Maine is a hot spot.
Yeah, Maine is. Yeah, for sure. Maybe
Northern
New Hampshire,
Maine.
But down here it just seems too crowded or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe Connecticut, New York down that end, but I don't know. It just seems to be quiet around here.
Hey, Cornell, I have a question really quick. Just like maybe not suggestion, but like content, like idea. Have you ever been to the Salem witch trial sites where they used to burn the witches and things like that?
Well, I've been in the town itself, but I don't know where the site is.
Oh, I found it online.
Oh, you did?
Google, yeah. It's really behind some people's houses, like up on like this little hill.
Oh.
It's just like a, so maybe, you know, I thought maybe you might be interested in.
Walk around that place and just do a bit of history. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Definitely, Chris. Yeah. Get a hold of me. I mean, my email's always in the description of my videos, or you can get a hold of me through Dave or however you want to do it, Chris. interested in seeing that.
Cornell, Maine. I think Maine's supposed to have the most heavily wooded state in the union. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is 99% or something crazy.
Wow.
I don't know how far it would be for you to get there from Massachusetts, but
Well, it's 2 hours to the border, but then it's really, really long. you
yeah,
know?
to get up top.
Yeah, Maine's the size of Ireland.
Wow. That's a lot of woods.
Yeah, Jesus
But
Christ. Yeah.
There's a young man here. He grew up here in Ada and took guitar lessons at the store forever. He went into the Marines, and he was back visiting, and one of his Marine buddies with him is from Maine, and he was telling me how, a moose or a bear or something could charge you in the woods, and you can't even see them through some of the woods. It's so thick up there, till they get just almost right on top of you. But
the woods. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say the woods, like from up in our area. I mean, Cornell's a little bit different than me, but we're still kind of like in the same latitude, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, it's straight across.
It's a little bit different than down there in Oklahoma. There's more, I don't know. I'd say there's more variety, wouldn't you, Cornell, of like fauna and like flora? I mean, like trees and things like that.
To be honest, where Dave takes us, it's kind of very similar around here.
Okay.
Yeah,
See, I have
he
a
was
lot
saying
of
something about it.
beach,
He was saying about it being
maple.
on the same line, the Appalachian kind
Yeah.
of line or something. I
Yeah.
can't remember what you were saying.
Yeah.
It wasn't that different. Sometimes, like, you can't tell the difference, Dave, when I'm walking about. You can't.
It's very similar. The Kiamichi area, southeast Oklahoma, is very similar to like the Appalachians or Appalachians, however you want to say that. But the Kiamichis is kind of getting as far west as you go with those kind of old mountains there. But Oklahoma has you go down into southwest Oklahoma, down there in the Wichita Mountains, you'd think you were in New Mexico or something. Very
really?
arid, deserty looking with those granite type of mountains down there. And you go out where we were, it's more like the Appalachians. You go up into some part of the Northwest, and you got some desert up there with sand dunes and stuff. So Oklahoma is a very diverse state as far as landscape goes. David Perkins and Alex Petikoff did an interesting documentary on possible Bigfoot in Maine on Small Town Monsters channel. Yeah, Alexander did a great job on those.
Yeah,
have you had him on, Dave?
No, I haven't. I mean, I've communicated with him before, but I have not.
He's really interesting. He does a lot of video. I mean, he's all around the country. Every time I see him, he's in friggin' Florida or he's up in Washington, and he does a lot of content. Very interesting.
He does. I got to throw this out there just for laughs. The other when I had Brent on the other night, there was discussion going on in the chat that was real negative about kind of anybody making money on the Bigfoot subject. And Will, he was in chat. He goes, "Hey, I make money on my channel. It don't bother me a bit."
Don't bother me at all.
I'd love to.
But to be fair, the kind of discussion kind of got on, people that actually defraud people, saying, "Hey, give me X amount of dollars and I'll take you in the woods and guarantee you a Bigfoot sighting." You can't do that.
I need to break some news too.
Okay.
Maybe it's not news to some people, but some people aren't going to like that I'm saying this. There are a lot of channels out there that get stories written for them, like fictional writing that they put on their channel. I had the guy reach out to me personally in an email, said, "Hey, I write scripts for this channel, this channel, this channel. Would you like me to write scripts for you?" I'm like,
I suspected that.
I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, you think those stories are real?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, that's fiction. They just tell me they tell me what the story wants to be, and I write it up for them." He's like, "All I want you to do is put a description, a link in the description, pay me this, blah blah blah." I'm like, "I'm not interested, man." I'm like, "I do the real deal."
There is one channel that every week he has somebody writes into him and he has this big long story and they all sound the same. I don't want to give his name out, but it's like there's no way he gets that many hits.
And this
You know?
channel has grown from like, I don't know, 40,000 viewers to like 400,000.
Wow.
Text me the name of it later. It might be the same one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I would like to know. I mean, I obviously I don't put names out on the
Yeah,
show.
I wouldn't do that either, but I'm just letting everybody know out there that is happening to a lot of these channels. You're like, I was astonished. I'm like, wow, there's really people just making stuff up and putting it out there like it's
Definitely.
real, you know?
And you know, if you're going to do that, you know, I mean, I'll enjoy a good story, but say it's a story.
Yeah, say it's creepypasta.
You know, I mean, there's
Don't
a
say
place
it's
for
real. You know what I
creepypasta.
mean? Like, park ranger says, "Oh, all these people are." You're like, it's all made up, man. Like, there's really no park ranger with that name. You know, like,
You can make
Hey.
make up a story yourself. Yeah, Brent will put the name out.
Brent will do a video. Brent's fearless.
yeah.
He
I
does
can send
not
him
care.
out the email the guy sent me, the writer sent me, you know. I'm like, wow, I can't believe it. He's like, well, if you ever change your mind, I'm like, I'm not gonna change my mind, but you know, like,
Oh, maybe he can talk to Brent, and Brent can spill the beans to Brent. There's
yeah,
my.
investigative journalism up in here on YouTube.
Then
I feel
again,
like-
you don't want to kind of, if somebody's just making money off it and they're just making money out of ad revenue,
Yeah,
you kind of don't want to ruin their livelihood either. You know, if they're not doing anybody any harm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you're right. YouTube is an entertainment
Yeah.
platform, but
As long as they're not
if you're
taking
trying to
people
come
into the
across as
woods.
like being honest, you know, I
Yeah.
don't know.
As long as they're not taking people into the woods and charging them $3,000 like some people.
Yeah.
Wait, $3,000?
That's what a certain Bigfoot celebrity does.
Oh, you're talking about
Really?
the guy up in Canada?
Yeah.
Oh,
Mr.
shoot.
TP?
Odd standing.
I would give somebody $3,000 if they could show me Bigfoot.
Oh yeah,
Nobody can
no
do
doubt.
that. Hey, here's the deal. If somebody could guarantee that you would see Bigfoot if you went out in the woods with them, it wouldn't be a mystery anymore.
Yeah, they would have evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
They'd
it.
already had-
I mean,
They wouldn't waste their time on your measly $3,000 when they could get millions of dollars for the footage.
Right.
Yeah, they
Well-
have buddies. They have buddies up there in the woods making knocks and stuff, and I bet you.
Well,
And that's
because
another thing. I'm glad you just brought that up. You see a lot of these TV programs where they're like a couple miles from a campground or something, and they're knocking out, and then all of a sudden, and I'm thinking to myself, they always say it's a Bigfoot. Like it can never be a person like responding like, "Hey, did you hear that? Let's send a tree back." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that could happen quite often, and they ignore that. It just little pet peeve of mine, I guess.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's like if we had it down to a science like that, then better chance you're going to end up with one in a zoo and you're going to get to pay a zoo fee to go and see Bigfoot rather than $3,000 to some guy up wherever, you know, however.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it does come out that they're real to the public by the government, they'd have to set aside hundreds of thousands of square acres, for
Yeah.
these creatures. Like take it away from the logging companies, and the economy would like take a massive hit.
Yeah, it would. It's
you know,
true.
I think they would have to readjust the way they
Do their
take
lumber.
timber.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I wish they would do away with clear cutting. That's horrible.
it's
Yeah.
terrible.
Cut-
And then they just
cut
plant
the
everything out
trees.
back with homogeneous trees,
Cut the trees you can use, leave the rest to grow, But the way they do it down in southeast Oklahoma, and I'm sure a lot of them, is they cut what they can use and bulldoze and burn the rest and plant back only one kind of tree,
Oh,
which
Jesus.
effectively destroys the ecosystem. I mean, it's
Horrible.
Horrible.
it's short-sighted and it's
There's
a
no
terrible thing.
there's no ecosystem in there anymore. It's just homogenization of, like whatever they can cut down, grow the fastest and cut it back down and grow it the fastest and cut it back down,
But yeah, I mean, select cutting. I mean, we got to have lumber, but use select cutting, not this clear cutting.
Yeah.
But anyway,
And with the new machinery they have, it's just like they could cut down a forest in a couple days. Not hundreds of thousands of square
Yeah.
miles, but you know what I mean? Like it's just unbelievable what they can do now.
All right, guys, I gotta run.
yeah, we've been going about an hour and a half, so
Yeah.
it's been a
Well,
good
that's
visit,
4
man.
hours.
It's
Yeah.
good to see you, Cornell.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
You
Well, now
bet.
you got to come to Ohio this year.
Yeah, I know. I could drive there in 7 hours.
Will's lonely. He wants us to come see him.
I just
I'd
want
love
to show
to.
you guys the area. You
I
guys
could
would
do that.
really
Honestly,
love it.
I would like to see
You guys
Ohio.
would really, really
someday.
dig the area. You guys would really like it.
Yeah, I know I would. And
Yeah.
Elijah, I guess I'll see you tomorrow at work.
Yeah. Well,
Hey, if
tomorrow's
anybody
great.
on here's got a YouTube channel and you need the artwork done for like T-shirts or whatever, my son there, he is a graphic designer by trade, and he is very good. He can build you something from the ground up, or he can work with some idea you've already got. So,
All right, guys.
Looks good. Later, Cornell.
see you,
All right.
Cornell.
Hey, Cornell.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good one.
Elijah,
Yeah.
you got anything you want to throw in?
Well, I don't know. I guess back to one of your points earlier when we were talking on like the scientific end of it, of why it's so difficult for people to get a consistent study. I don't understand the head biting that happens. Like, I mean, to your point of like, if everybody's going in there with genuine, intent, and they're doing an honest, experiment, then great. You have to respect like that honesty, but why can't they come together and say, okay, here is an agreed upon experiment. We're both going to observe those results separately and then come together with our evidence. But you have to have a control in there, at some point. Otherwise, it doesn't really mean anything because you don't have a base to go off of.
I think
And then
it
also
just goes back to the scientific community being like, I don't know, they don't work together very well. They always have different factions coming against each other, even back in Einstein's time, Like,
That's the
You
way
never-
it's supposed to be. That's the way it's
Yeah.
supposed to be.
I kind of agree with that, back and forth, but I think that like what Elijah's saying is touches base with that, like it just built into that, scientific not formula, but platform that,
right.
they got to go back and forth like that. And sometimes it just doesn't
And
lead
yeah,
to-
you have a theory, and then
Yeah.
your peers should test that theory. You go back and forth.
Yeah.
And what we run into now is different camps. You got a paranormal camp, you got flesh and blood camp, you got the ape camp, you got the is it a type of human camp.
Humanoid, yeah.
There's a reason they have those thoughts. Somebody reported or experienced something that made them think that. Of course, there's hoaxes too, obviously.
Yeah.
But there are, reasons a lot of, sincere people come up with those thoughts. So I think that, in the spirit of science, explore those, debate those things, and see if you come up with another piece to the puzzle.
And
So,
I feel like to that point, I don't know, maybe it's just because like where I'm from, where we're from, but it's always kind of a big deal to call someone a liar just right off the bat, and we've just gotten real comfortable with just calling someone a liar. Like maybe they genuinely got freaked out,
Yeah.
Maybe they're not ill intent. Maybe they just really believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's absolutely right with that. Like when you're like in a stressful situation where you're freaking yourself out or whatever, or a situation is freaking yourself out, you're not the best person to interview about that situation.
Yeah.
You're not going to remember everything correctly.
one thing, and I've said for years, and I think I heard Brent, the tall ones, make a reference to this on one of his shows, but when you go out into the woods, the worst thing you can do is go out there with monster on the brain.
Yeah.
Because then you're opening yourself up to, wanting there to be evidence so bad you may see it where it's not.
Come on, dog, just manifesting dog man.
Yeah.
Or whatever,
And there are channels out there that do that 100% all the time. They go out in the woods constantly, and it's like, look at that. It's like, look at what, man? Like what? It's a tree that fell, like.
Yeah.
I started here a few years ago just to record some of my trips to the woods that were just a camping spot. That nothing happens. Most of the time it is just camping. But those videos don't get so many views. but I do enjoy getting out in the woods. And but what I've been doing of late, started last year, was go out if I don't find any evidence or anything that leads me to think there may possibly be your friendly neighborhood Sasquatch around. I go out with my camera and I video snakes and such as that, So there's always interesting things out in the woods that you can do, so.
Well, and even to the point of making content, like being entertaining about the subjects, you don't have to make up nonsense stories about it. Like I feel like your dog man, like how to call a dog man, how to call a Bigfoot, like that's entertaining. It's funny,
Yeah.
but you're not making some made up story to try to trick people.
Nope.
And you can do both ways. And Will, to your point earlier, like there's people that write fictional stories, but people will watch those fictional stories. They want to hear a scary story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They love the creepypasta.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was going to do something like that, which I would never do really, but if I was going to, I would make sure the channel, people knew that's what that channel was, right?
Right.
Like I'm not here putting this stuff out, trying to put it out as real. This is fiction here, people, just so going into it. But these other people aren't doing that. They're trying to trick people thinking it's real stuff, It's
right.
Brian Warfield, I did not know this, but he said clear cutting is one reason the wildfires have become so bad in California. The replanted trees burn very hot and fast. It reportedly caused Greenville to burn down. So that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
It's depressing to see all the clear cutting logging that's going on. I literally, with me, I go on Google Earth a lot. And it's just I go up in the Pacific Northwest and look, and when the new images come out, I'm like, man, look, there's 100 acres gone. There's another 200. It's just if you look at the map, if you go to Google Earth and go to certain areas in the Pacific Northwest, it looks like a checkerboard. It literally does, where they're going from square to square, taking the forest. And
it's the same way in southeast Oklahoma. Pull up Google Earth down around Clayton and around in especially LaFleur County, McCurtain County. It's just horrible. Just cut what you can use and let the rest, leave the hardwoods and stuff you're not using alone. But anyway, if they don't listen to me, I don't have the money to be influenced. So anyway, guys, we've been going about an hour and a half, and I have a long drive to get home tonight. David, I'm going to try to start having these on a regular basis. If you guys in chat or whatever have some names that you would like to see me have on here, get a hold of me, either email or Facebook message. I'll look into that too. And it's thanks for taking part in the chat and all, and good to see all of you. My friend Mark there, hadn't seen Mark since he left Oklahoma, but it's good to see you here and all that. So, Bill,
may the force be with you, everybody.
Thank the forest be with you.
With you, Hocking Hills, Ohio.
So, here's Andy. Andy, he's been following my channel since I started it from day one, pretty much. So, anyhow, Elijah, I will see you at work tomorrow. And Will,
see ya.
Good to see you, man.
It's always a great time. Always a great time. Good to see you, Elijah.
Good to see you too, man.
Yeah.
And everybody else in chat, again, thanks for taking part, and I appreciate you guys a lot. And until next time, everybody take care.
See ya.